Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida on June the 8th reiterated his stance that he is ready to meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un to resolve the issue related to past kidnappings of Japanese citizens. He told a Senate committee, "A summit with Chairman Kim should be done soon, should not waste the opportunity, so I continue to pursue high-level negotiations." Prime Minister Kishida also signaled a readiness to overcome the dark past between the two countries, to normalize diplomatic relations once key issues are resolved, such as citizen abduction, nuclear weapons, and missiles. This is the latest move by the Japanese government following a series of recent geopolitical developments in Northeast Asia, such as Tokyo strengthening all-round relations with South Korea, as well as becoming tougher with China and Russia. In his speech on June the 8th, Prime Minister Kishida said the families of those kidnapped by North Korea are getting old. Time goes by quietly and waits for no one. Therefore, he wants to resume dialogue with Chairman Kim Jong Un soon. He also hopes that North Korea will soon open its border with China to restart tourism and diplomatic activities. North Korea resumed freight trains to China and Russia in 2022. Since May 2023, North Korea has ramped up more trains like these. According to South Korea's intelligence agency, it is possible that North Korea is dealing with continuous COVID-19 outbreaks, so it needs to buy more medical equipment. Diplomatic efforts with North Korea by the international community have stalled after the meeting between President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong Un in 2019. So far, there is no indication that Kim Jong Un wants to talk to the administration of President Joe Biden or Yoon Suk-yeol. North Korea's response to Japan looks a bit different. When Prime Minister Kishida said he was ready to participate in high-level discussions, Pyongyang quickly responded. North Korea's Vice Foreign Minister Park Hyang-in said in late May, reported by state media that if Japan was looking for a way to improve relations, there was no reason for North Korea and Japan not to meet. Before the failed military spy satellite launch in May, North Korea informed Japan before telling the rest of the international community. There are other signs that North Korea is maintaining a softer stance toward Japan. Cho Young-yong, head of the Korea Association of Kidnapped Families, said he received a text message at the end of May from Kim Young-jong, who lives in North Korea, the daughter of one Japanese kidnapped, Megumi Yokota. Ms. Yokota was kidnapped in 1977 at the age of 13 and never returned to her family. Her father, Sekeru Yokota, passed away in 2020. The message from Ms. Kim Young-yong is, "My mother wants to lay a wreath at my grandfather's grave, all the graves at the grandfather's grave with her name engraved." The Japanese government officially lists 17 citizens who were abducted by North Korea, and there has been no progress on resolving the issue in nearly a decade. The most recent development was the 2014 Stockholm Agreement, in which North Korea pledged to reopen investigations into abductees. Pyongyang then announced unilaterally ending the investigation in 2016. Prime Minister Kishida faces major hurdles to carrying out a summit with Chairman Kim, among them differing views on the abduction issue. Pyongyang reiterated in late May that the issue had been resolved, warning that if Japan tried to do the impossible, it would be futile and a waste of time. Prime Minister Kishida also lacks a middleman who can broker a summit with Kim. In preparation for the trip of then Japanese Prime Minister Junichiro Koizumi to North Korea in 2002, the Japanese Foreign Ministry held secret talks with a North Korean official known as Mr. X. Professor Asuhito Izuyaki of Keio University said, "We cannot yet say that there have been major changes to this situation. It appears that both Japan and North Korea are probing each other to see the other's true intentions and level of commitment. Therefore, breakthroughs in the relations between two countries won't be far away. However, it is not impossible." Some other experts also say that Japan's biggest goal in relations with North Korea is to reconnect. Tokyo wants to maintain good relations with China's neighbors to prevent them from being influenced by Asia's largest country, leading to dependence and possibly assimilation. The Japanese government on June the 9th pledged that they will reach out to developing countries with aid in areas where partners are weak and need help. This is a new policy to compete with China's Belt and Road project. The aid, based on Tokyo proposal, will be combined with the usual classification process outlined in the Cooperation and Development Charter, which details the regulation of the development aid for poor countries. The new proposal was approved by the Japanese cabinet on the same day. This is the first time since 2015 Japan has revised a charter related to providing ODA to developing countries. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's government seeks to position Japan as a donor that can meet the needs of some countries, especially in areas of Japan's strengths, such as renewable energy and digital transformation. When Prime Minister Kishida visited India in March, he called on two countries to invest in quality infrastructure as a guiding principle to find ways to push back the Belt and Road projects of China. Japan has budgeted 570.9 billion yen, equivalent to $4.09 billion for ODA in the current financial year. Funding has gradually increased since 2015, but is only half of its peak of nearly $10 billion in fiscal 1997. Meanwhile, investments in the Belt and Road project averaged $100 billion a year before 2019, according to estimates by the American Enterprise Institute. China has scaled back these investments after the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, but the annual amount is still between $60 to $70 billion. Chinese President Xi Jinping planned to hold a third Belt and Road Summit this year, raising the possibility that China will expand economic aid to poor and developing countries. Many critics accuse China of luring developing countries into a debt trap with loans they cannot repay, leading to the ceding of infrastructure rights to China, especially the projects of high strategic importance, such as wharves and airports. Japan's new development aid policy states that Tokyo will cooperate with recipient countries in the spirit of no economic coercion and without undermining the independence and right to sustainable development of developing countries. In order to do this, in parallel with funding, Japan will support countries receiving capital to manage and use capital effectively. This is different from China, whose capital is often directed to corrupt countries with strict terms. For example, Chinese capital must be accompanied by hiring Chinese contractors or Chinese workers. As a result, the buildings never finished and the borrower ran out of money. Falling into a debt trap is inevitable. However, there are some opinions that the amount of Japanese ODA cannot be compared with the huge amount of China. Allocating 0.7% of gross national income to ODA is considered the international standard, but Japan's share has leveled off at 0.4%. Instead, Japan wants to prioritize quality over quantity. For example, the focus is narrow on renewable energy projects in countries heavily dependent on oil or coal. The second area of Japan prioritized is digital transformation. Once countries upgrade their governance by digitalizing government processes, the management of funds will be more transparent and efficient. Japan started granting ODA in the 1950s as part of World War II reparations. Countries that received large amounts of Japanese aid in the 1960s and 1970s included China, South Korea, South Vietnam, Myanmar, and the Philippines. In 1989, Japan overtook the United States to become the world's largest ODA donor. From 1993 to 2000, Japan was the largest donor. Then the United States regained the number one position. China was once Japan's largest recipient of foreign aid. Japan began providing development assistance to China in 1979 to speed up the process of opening up its economy. But over time, aid to China became increasingly opposed. Tokyo ended ODA projects with China in 2022. According to some experts from the University of Tokyo, If Japan, the United States, India, and other democratic countries do not join forces to push back the Belt and Road, more countries will suffer in that trap. Conflicts in Africa have flared up more recently, partly because the government is poorer, unable to afford to take care of the basic needs of its people. Poverty becomes a fertile ground for armed groups to recruit soldiers. In the new national security strategy released on June 7th, South Korea took a warmer approach to Japan in the context of President Yoon Suk-yeol's administration pledging to strengthen cooperation with Tokyo based on universal values of democracy and the rule of law. The new strategy, launched for the first time since Mr. Yoon took office in 2022 and turned around Seoul's previous hotline stance on historical and geopolitical issues between two countries. In the new national security strategy, South Korea considers Japan an important neighbor and wants to step up cooperation in areas such as defense and economy. The strategy calls on two countries to face the past frankly and build a more positive future, echoing the spirit of the 1989 Japan-Korea Declaration. Seoul's previous strategy, launched in 2018 under President Moon Jae-in, said, South Korea would judge history harshly and accused Japan of distorting history, as well as claiming wrongful sovereignty over the Dokdo Islands. Dokdo is currently administered by South Korea and claimed by Japan as Takeshima. Since Mr. Yoon took office, two countries have made diplomatic strides in resolving tense issues, such as wartime labor. Mr. Yoon also changed Seoul's stance on North Korea, while the previous government emphasized peaceful resolution of differences. The latest national security strategy identifies Pyongyang's nuclear weapons as a real threat to South Korea. The new strategy also affirms the importance of Seoul being able to deter threats, to be able to strike first, as well as to retaliate. The new document also calls for an upgrade of the global strategic alliance with the United States based on universal values. Regarding to China, the new document hopes for a more effective communication strategy with its giant neighbor to manage disagreements. Bilateral relations must be based on the principles and core interests of each side. Seoul's new strategy also calls for a review of diplomatic relations with Russia, condemns the attack on Ukraine, and outlines South Korea's participation in international cooperation to restore peace. Still, the Yoon administration pledged to work to maintain a stable relationship with Russia. Also, on relations with Japan, South Korean Defense Minister Lee Yun-sop met his neighboring counterpart Yasukazu Hamada at the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore on June 4th. The two sides agreed to prevent a recurrence of the radar lock incident, which occurred between a Japanese aircraft and a South Korean warship in 2018. According to experts, the two sides still have different views on many issues. Another prominent defense figure, the decision to compromise and strengthen security cooperation is a welcome step forward. In December 2018, the Japanese government announced that a South Korean destroyer directed its spy control radar at a Japan Self-Defense Force patrol aircraft off the Noto Peninsula in Ishikawa Prefecture. Seoul denied the allegation, accusing the Japanese side of threatening their warship by lowering the airplane's altitude. This issue between two sides remained unresolved prior to the meeting in Singapore. Also in 2018, Seoul asked the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force not to fly the Japanese Navy's Rising Sun flag at an international military parade in South Korea. The reason is that these flags recall the image of the Japanese Navy attacking the Korean Peninsula during World War II. Japan refused and did not send naval ships to the parade. After these events, mutual distrust grew between two governments. Defense cooperation and exchanges have stalled, casting a shadow over the tripartite relationship with the United States. Trust is essential for bilateral security cooperation because of the Japanese and Korean militaries. In some cases, it is possible to operate in the same sea. The agreement in Singapore recently served as leverage to promote joint training between the United States, Japan, and South Korea, as well as the resumption of defense exchanges between Tokyo and Seoul. Also in Singapore, the three sides reached a historic agreement to share real-time intelligence related to North Korea, especially its missile and nuclear weapons programs. The intelligence sharing agreements between Japan and South Korea also recently resumed, was suspended under President Moon Jae-in. The administration of South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol is under attack from the opposition over the issues of treated wastewater at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, as well as the Japanese warship flying the Rising Sun flag when docked in South Korea at the end of May. This was the first such visit in 6 years. However, some recent public polls show that Mr. Yoon's approval rating is increasing slightly. The reason is most likely because of some of his resolute moves in foreign affairs, especially the resumptions of cooperation with Japan for the benefits of two countries. For thousands of years, Japan and China have always been rival. Smaller countries in the region, such as Korea, are frequently caught up in this confrontational relationship. In recent months, Tokyo has made many diplomatic moves to show that it wants to engage more closely with its neighbors, not only for economic recovery after the pandemic, but also for its own security interests and partners. Of course, as in history, factors related to China are extremely important in the above shift. Our program has come to an end now. Thanks for your attention and see you next time.